There is a real gang war going on in Jacksonville. ATK and 1200 are at war with 6 Block. It is blatant. They shoot each other, and then they post about it on social media. When one of the opposition dies, you see photographs of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, the GOAT, being posted in the early morning hours. You see laughing emojis. They produce and post drill rap videos, making fun of people who have been shot and murdered. There is nothing fun about the gang war in Jacksonville. And on June 23rd of 2024, this violence spilled into Tampa when these 4 men decided and planned and came to Tampa for one night, for one purpose, and that was to hunt and track and kill Charles Jones. That is the only reason they came to Tampa. That was a planned, premeditated, cold, calculated, organized mission that they did here in Tampa on the only one night that they were here. They wanted to take out their rival. They wanted to kill Charles Jones. He is Mr. Six, Little Six, Six. He is 6 Block. He is the most prominent member of 6 Block. And the only reason that they were here in Tampa, Florida, was to kill him. All of their efforts were to kill him. This was a conspiracy that started long before June 23rd of 2024. This started in Jacksonville long before they came here. And the evidence shows that. They conspired with one another to come to Tampa. There is never going to be an eyewitness in here that is going to be able to identify those 3 gunmen because they were prepared for this mission. They were heavily armed and they were masked. And those eyewitnesses that talked to law enforcement couldn't give one detail about those shooters because they were ambushed and they were afraid and they were fearful of their lives. Camilla Bentley panicked. She prayed in her car for the car to start, and in a panic she fled out of that parking lot for her life and crashed into Armani Turner's vehicle. Armani Turner did the same thing. She backed up and she fled for her life with her passengers. She fled for help. She went and down that road that she didn't know and saw USF patrol, saw flashing lights, and got help, and then went back to where her boyfriend had been shot and gunned down. The 2 other victims in this case, Gino Norris and Xavier Edwards, they can't give you details about those shooters because they were in a vehicle. Gino Norris was asleep when all of a sudden he heard gunfire and then a car crashes. And they fled. They fled for their lives because they were in fear. They ran and they hid in the 3rd floor of the Holiday Inn until law enforcement arrived to get them life-saving treatment. So there are no eyewitnesses in this case that can identify those armed gunmen because they did their job very well. They planned this to the most tiniest detail. You don't have an eyewitness, but what you have is much better than any eyewitness that can ever testify in any case. You have what we call a silent witness, the unflinching eye of a camera lens. The video evidence in this case tells you and shows you everything that happened to Charles Jones and his friends on June 23rd of 2024. All of those cameras at Truth 18. The cameras covering the door, the cameras covering the steps leading up to it, the parking lot, all of the cameras at Teasers, the first club that they went to that covers the door and that parking lot. And it shows that Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, and Davion Murphy, and Alicia Andrews were on a coordinated mission. You don't have to guess what they were doing because you can see it for yourselves. Those cameras don't lie. This is at Teasers. Every time where the victim was supposed to be, he was supposed to be at Teasers, the silver Chevy Cruze appears first. This is a coordinated attack. The silver Chevy Cruze is the surveillance team. They are the eyes of this mission. Their job is to track and locate Charles Jones. And Isaiah Chance is using his girlfriend, Alicia Andrews, for cover because he's got a COVID mask on in June in Florida so that his face cannot be seen, and he doesn't want to appear out in the open with other men, with other gang members, because that will tip Charles Jones and all of his friends that there is going to be trouble. This plan is planned in every detail. They are using a girl so he can be seen walking with a girl like he's just going out to a club. And the silver Chevy Cruze gets there first, and then after they walk around to the front and get eyes on the victim and see who he's with, see what vehicles that he is in, they communicate to the second vehicle, the black Chevy Impala. The video camera, every place the victim went, shows these two cars, and these are Jacksonville cars. There are two cars that come to Tampa, and they come to Tampa on June 22nd of 2024. You know from the mapping where they went. They went to the Airbnb that they had booked specifically to come down here to kill Charles Jones. That is all they did that night, was scout the location, track the victim from club to club, and then to the hotel where they finally kill him. The video shows you exactly what happened in this case. And the video shows that they were prepared. They brought their masks, they brought their firearms, and they thought ahead to have two teams. So the silver Chevy Cruze is the surveillance team. The black Chevy Impala is the hit team. Let's call this what it is. It was a hit on Charles Jones, and the evidence and the video support that that was the only goal that they had. At Teasers, they never go in that club. They never approach the bouncer. They never approach the door. Their only interest is Charles Jones. And when they see him, Alicia Andrews and Isaiah Chance leave. They've done their job. And they communicate to the second vehicle, Sean Gathright, who is in the Chevy Impala. Here is the victim. Again, this is the timeline, 2:29 a.m. And the silver Chevy Cruze has already parked, and the defendant, Isaiah Chance, and Alicia Andrews have walked around the corner and not approached this door, but walked enough around the back of that parking lot so they could see where the victim was. See his car, see who he's with. How many people are they going to see with the victim? How many people are they going to have to shoot and kill? This diagram shows, State's Exhibit 39, exactly their path that night. They're not there to go to a club. They're there to see where Charles Jones and his friends are. There is so much digital evidence in this case, and you have heard a lot about the license plate readers in this case, that show coordination, tandem movement between the silver Chevy Cruze and the black Chevy Impala. No dispute the silver Chevy Cruze belongs to a relative of Rashad and Davion Murphy. No dispute that Rashad Murphy specifically got a vehicle that is not registered to his name before coming to Tampa to commit first-degree premeditated murder. He got that vehicle for a specific purpose. No dispute, the black Chevy Impala is Sean Gathright's mother's vehicle that he personally uses, that we have video footage and license plate reader after license plate reader after license plate reader that show it in his house in Victoria Lane in Jacksonville. That's his car. Those two Jacksonville cars come to Tampa on the very day that they know Charles Jones, Julio Foolio, is scheduled to appear at a club that lists the address. And they scout that address. Their cell phone records show that they go there earlier because they're casing the location. They want to see where the entrance is. The cell phone mapping. We've heard a lot about the cell phone mapping. And those are those coordinates for all of the cell phones, for Alicia Andrews, for Charles, for Isaiah Chance, for Sean Gathright, for Davion Murphy, and for Rashad Murphy, the phone that stays in Jacksonville. Those records aren't provided by law enforcement. They are kept by the cell phone providers. It's their data from their equipment. Those are accurate information. Sometimes there is not all the data that may be available. Some may be missing, but it is accurate data. They are kept for business purposes, for billing purposes, for customer service to ensure their clients get the best coverage. Those are the records. Those are the data that law enforcement is looking at. But they don't just stop there. They confirm and they verify. They verify it with real video evidence showing that person in the location at the time where the device is registering. One example, Alicia Andrews' cell phone mapping shows her phone in the vicinity of Truth 18 around 4 a.m. And guess what? They're there. They're on video. 4:03 to 4:05 a.m., more video evidence, still shots from the video surveillance of Truth 18, showing them, again, they don't go to any club. They walk and they check out that sign. That sign happens to be right in front of, across the parking lot, the front door of Truth 18, the very club that Charles Jones and his friends are entering. They are tracking them, tracking Charles Jones and his friends. They are the eyes of the surveillance mission. Here's from her phone, from the digital extraction from the iCloud. That was taken on her phone. It happens to be a view of Truth 18 at the very moment when Charles Jones and his party are getting ready to leave. The evidence clearly shows they are conducting surveillance, and they are communicating. Alicia Andrews, the person who is not in the gang, is communicating with Sean Gathright's phone, the other person not in a gang. That is how sophisticated they are. They planned this, and they planned not to get caught. They know law enforcement will be looking at them when this happens. So they are utilizing people that are not known gang members to use their phones and their devices so they do not get caught. And there is communication between her device and Sean Gathright's device all through the tracking of the victim, including Alicia Andrews' device sharing her location. 4:25 a.m. This is when she started sharing the location with Sean Gathright. 4:14 a.m., that is when the black Chevy Impala again arrives after the silver Chevy Cruze has already put eyes on the victim and his friends. The video evidence in this case has been examined by law enforcement, by Detective Ramos, multiple times to get all of the facts that we can. And these are the facts that you can see for yourself. These are the true facts of this case, and it shows coordination between those two vehicles. It shows the only reason and the only purpose that the silver Chevy Cruze and Isaiah Chance and Alicia Andrews are at Teasers and Truth 18 and then at Home to Sweets is to get eyes on the victim. They're not there to have a drink. They're not there to go into a club. They have no interest in any of those things. That's what you do if you're a tourist when you come to Tampa. You check out the parking lot, you check out a sign. That's not what they're doing. They are there at the very moment that the victim is there. Charles Jones went into that hotel and then comes, and you can clearly see he is in the front seat passenger of his car. That is important because you will see that when the shooting finally happens, the shooters track the very vehicle that he is in. Because again, Isaiah Chance and Alicia Andrews have done what they are supposed to do. The second video is now when you can see the black Chevy Impala purposely going the long way around the hotel to park on the side so he does not come in direct eyesight or eye line of Charles Jones and his party. This is Tafa McRae pulling up. That's what happens next in the sequence. Again, another person that had been traveling with Charles Jones all night. Now you're going to see him and Aaliyah Albritton, get out of his vehicle and go into the bathroom. And it's at this moment that Camilla Bentley pulls into the driver's seat. Here is the silver Chevy Cruze. It doesn't avoid the victim's party. It wants to know exactly where everyone is. They need to know where Charles Jones is. He's been wearing a bright red cap all night. They want to know where the other vehicles are. They are familiar with who Charles Jones is with. Xavier Edwards, Robert Howard. You know they know who Robert Howard is, right? He's the one that went to prison for killing Joe Rod Adams on a manslaughter. You know they know every single person who Charles Jones is with that night. Tafa McCrae, close friend of Charles Jones, a relative. Xavier Edwards, Gino Norris, all close friends of Charles Jones. His girlfriend, they know all of the vehicles and all of the players that Charles Jones is with. The next sequencing is the silver Chevy Cruze going around the corner to meet up with the black Chevy Impala. And you saw from the Tesla video and the other video of the side angle that the black Chevy Impala isn't registering as a guest in Holiday Inn. They're not registering as a guest in Home to Suites. They're backing in at an angle behind the building so that they cannot be in sight line of the victim and his friends. Now the silver Chevy Cruze again will pass the victim, and this time they will have direct eyesight of where Charles Jones is. They are passing right directly in front of him and his friends and know exactly where all of them are parked. You can see the person with the firearm is targeting his exact location. This is another angle of both shooter 1 and shooter 2 coming around before they fire upon the victim and his friends. Guns already out, masked, and loaded for rapid fire, quick succession. Charles Jones never had a chance. Shooter number 3, hanging out on the back in the very path that Xavier Edwards would drive through trying to flee for his life. All of you got to see that for yourself. You didn't need a witness to tell you what happened to Charles Jones on June 23rd of 2024. The evidence is crystal clear and the videos do not lie. I don't have to prove that a gang war is going on in Jacksonville. I don't have to prove which members killed what other members. None of that is what is at issue in this case. It is relevant to motive, why this homicide happened. The state does not have to prove motive. That is added evidence to show you why this happened, but it is not required. The only 3 things that I have to prove, that the state of Florida has to prove to you to prove first-degree premeditated murder of Charles Jones is 1, Charles Jones is dead. There is no dispute to that, the first element. 2, the death was caused by the criminal act of the defendant. 3, there was a premeditated killing of Charles Jones. all three of those elements have been proven beyond and to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt. And you're going to see that it says the defendant. There are 4 defendants in this case, and you need to apply the evidence, look at the evidence to each one of the defendants separately and individually, and make separate verdicts for each and every one of them. And we have already talked about the principal instruction, but we will talk about that again. It does not matter that Isaiah Chance is in the scouting vehicle. If he intended for this homicide to occur, and he absolutely did, that is the only reason any of them are in Tampa. And if he did something to aid or assist, then you have to treat him as if he had done everything that the shooters have done. And that goes to all 3 of the shooters as well. They are all participating. We may not know which of their bullets penetrated into Charles Jones' vehicles multiple times and into him and killed him, but it is enough that they intended for him to die and that they did something to assist. They all did more than just shoot those firearms. You know they did based on the digital evidence. They tracked him, they followed him, and they hunted him. The digital evidence in this case makes no mistake that on their free time, when they weren't scouting teasers, they were online trying to locate him because the victim was posting online, saying that he is at an Airbnb. You saw all the digital evidence of Sean Gathright. You spent a lot of time looking for where that Airbnb is on his phone. Tried to set up a woman that he knows in Orlando to pose and call one of Charles Jones's friends to find his location at the Airbnb. Rashad Murphy also trying to locate where the victim is. They stalked him, they hunted him, they targeted him, and then when they found him, they gunned him down. That is first-degree premeditated murder. We talked about killing with premeditation. It is consciously reflecting to kill a person before doing it. And we talked about that there is no time that has been placed upon the requirement for premeditation. It can happen in seconds. This premeditation clearly had begun in Jacksonville when Sean Gathright and Isaiah Chance are loading up that black Chevy Impala with heavy bags. Attempted first-degree premeditated murder. This is for counts 3, 4, and 5, and only applied to the shooters. Gino Norris, Xavier Edwards, and Camilla Bentley all survived, but they were purposely shot at. To prove attempted first-degree murder, again, we only have to prove 3 elements beyond and to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt. The defendant intended to commit the crime of first-degree premeditated murder. The defendant committed an overt act toward the commission of first-degree premeditated murder that went beyond mere preparation. And the defendant failed to complete first-degree premeditated murder. They got to the hospital, and all 3 of them survived their injuries. So they were not another victim of this gang war. The line between mere preparation and an overt act is a question of fact, again, for you to decide as a member of this jury. Mere preparation consists of devising or arranging the means or measures to commit the crime. An overt act consists of some movement toward committing the crime after the preparation. You saw the loading of the bags. You saw they scouted teasers the location. You saw they tracked the victim to 2 locations before home to suites. An overt act need not be the last possible act toward completing the crime. An overt act consists of some movement toward committing the crime after preparation. Let's take a look at those videos from home to suites. They're all shooting at the victim vehicle, the black Dodge Charger, and yes, they shoot at Typha McCrae's vehicle as well. He's gotten out of it. Camilla Bentley is in it. But you see, shooter 1 is shooting, shooter 2 is shooting, shooter 3 is shooting. Their muzzle flash goes off so many times, it is hard to count in those videos. The impact of those guns are setting off that Tesla multiple times. Xavier Edwards, the victim in count 3, shot in his arm. Gino Norris, the victim in count 4, shot in his arm. Take a look at the vehicle of the victim, Charles Jones, that black Dodge Charger. These aren't novices. You heard from Officer De Jesus, a SWAT-trained officer, to maintain proficiency for SWAT. He trains every 2 weeks, not just every 2 weeks. He said to be proficient, he does it on his personal time. To be able to be accurate in high stressful situations, to be able to be accurate in non-stressful situations is a skill. It requires training. Take a look at where these shots are hitting. Every place that was occupied in Charles Jones's vehicle, Xavier Edwards is the driver, Charles Jones is the front passenger, and Gino Norris is in the back. The driver and the passenger seats have been hit. And they haven't been hit just anywhere. They are hit on the headrest. That is skill accuracy. And if it is a hit team, these are kill shots that you are seeing right there. And there is no doubt that is exactly what they are. They are a hit team put together for the sole purpose of killing Charles Jones, Julio Foolio, their arch rival. Look at the back seat where Gino Norris was laying down. They thought he was laying down, or this wouldn't be another attempted murder. They intended to kill Charles Jones and every single person that was in the vehicle with him. That is attempted first-degree murder because they failed to do it. Gino Norris and Xavier Edwards survived. Camilla Bentley, count 5. They knew Typha McCrae was with Charles Jones, and they targeted his vehicle as well. Camilla Bentley was in the driver's seat and got out of there, but she got shot as well. They knew Charles Jones's friends, his entourage, his party was in this vehicle. And again, it is accuracy, it is skill, because those 2 shots are right to the rear window. And they cross in front to the front, and you know that they got her. They intended to kill all of the people in those vehicles. That is attempted first-degree murder. The black Chevy Impala. There is no video showing who is inside. There is no video showing their faces when they get out. They have been designated Shooter 1, Shooter 2, and Shooter 3. Let's talk about principles. This is the instruction that the judge will read to you. If the defendant helped another person or persons commit or attempt to commit a crime, the defendant is a principal and must be treated as if he had done all the things the other person or persons did. if the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant intended the crime to occur and did some act or said something that was intended to and that did incite, encourage, assist, or advise. This is an or. It just has to be one of these things. And you know that they did multiple things. All of them had multiple roles in this first-degree premeditated murder. For first-degree premeditated murder, the state must prove the defendant intended that the killing of the victim occurred. And they absolutely did. All of them. All of them knew coming to Tampa. That's exactly what the plan was. If the defendant is found to be a principal, he is legally responsible and accountable for everything that his co-defendants did. So how do we know who these armed, masked gunmen are? The video doesn't lie. There are a total of 5. 2 in the silver Chevy Cruze, and they are also covering their face with COVID masks. And then 3 in the black Chevy Impala. The first thing that law enforcement does is they locate and track who the registered owners of those vehicles were. And they did a lot of investigative work with license plate readers, narrowing down, and that is called deductive investigation, and that is evidence. And they were able to locate the 2 very vehicles involved in this case and track them all the way from Jacksonville to Tampa. And it is no coincidence that they are not only from Jacksonville, but they actually happen to be members of the rival gang of the victim in this case. And it is no coincidence that both of these vehicles are at points traveling in tandem. They are passing the same license plate readers as the other one because they are traveling together. This is a coordinated mission. Every piece of evidence shows and proves that beyond all reasonable doubt.